So my relationship with the Hyrule Warriors franchise has been a lot of high points and a lot of low points. I loved the original Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U, and by extension when it was re-released with the definitive edition on the Nintendo Switch. A super fun game, you know, that over-the-top crazy Warriors gameplay, but featuring the Legend of Zelda characters and canon and storyline. It pulled upon a bunch of different Zelda games in order to make it like a whole sort of universe within itself, and it was super fun and very enjoyable. And then we had Age of Calamity on the Nintendo Switch, and you know, a little bit limited in terms of what you could pull from. Obviously, it's only involving Breath of the Wild, but that wasn't the problem for me. The problem for me with that game was the performance. It was not good. Like, the game did not look good, and it did not run very well at all. So, a new Hyrule Warriors game, I was hopeful that it would be able to harness the power of the Nintendo Switch 2. And, you know, the Switch 2 isn't the most powerful system in the world or anything like that, but I was hopeful for this game, you know, bringing back the fun gameplay, but actually looking and performing like a game like this should. So, how is this game? That's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. I played the game for about 7+ hours straight. I recorded very early footage within the game, first 2-3 hours or so. So, all of this stuff should be rather spoiler-free. But I have a lot of things I want to say about this game because I think I'm enjoying it a lot more than a lot of other reviewers have been so far. Not to say that I don't understand where they're coming from, because I honestly do. But I also think that if you're a fan of this style of gameplay and you enjoy The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and by extension Breath of the Wild, this is a very enjoyable game with lots of different layers that maybe people aren't quite picking up on. So storyline-wise, this game takes place before Tears of the Kingdom, like, kind of. Like, it alludes to things that happened at the very, very beginning of Tears of the Kingdom and essentially fleshes out that game. So you do have Princess Zelda, of course. You have Ganondorf and how Ganondorf kind of moved his way into the system with Rauru and stuff like that. If you've played Tears of the Kingdom, there's a lot of stuff to pull from within the characters, but there's also a litany of brand new characters as well. I think the story is actually very interesting in this game. There is a lot of cutscenes. Like, the first hour and a half of the game, there is a lot of story mechanics, but they try to really flesh out like the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom and how Hyrule got into the state that it was in by talking about the things that actually happened. Now, some of the things kind of mess with canon and stuff like that, but I won't talk too much about that because for me, it's like Zelda games, I don't know, they're all kind of self-contained. I don't look at Hyrule timelines and stuff like that. I know some people in the comments are going to get very angry at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. There is no timeline. There's not. You're piecing together stuff based on other games, like Nintendo themselves. They don't even try to like make a real sort of, you know, timeline with everything. Like, yeah, they kind of do, but they kind of don't. Just let each individual game be, and if it takes upon things from other games, then that's cool. But generally speaking, so far the story has actually been very interesting. The way it introduces new characters, the way it sort of explains things, I've been digging it. And then, of course, we have the game itself. And as you've seen with the footage thus far, it's a Warriors game through and through. But I think that in this instance is good. That's what I wanted from this game. Warriors games are very button mashing intensive, but I don't think button mashing is really the proper word to use. And I've seen a lot of reviews and, you know, people saying, oh, it's just mindless button mashing, but it's really not. You have weak attacks and you have strong attacks. And by hitting these buttons, Y and X respectively, in different combinations, your characters will do different sorts of moves. There are times where it is smart to do certain combinations at certain time frames. You also have different attacks that build up over time that kind of combat when you are facing certain boss-style enemies. Boss-style enemies usually have a couple of different super attacks in which they will glow red and you can actually counter that by doing an appropriate attack. So if it's an attack where they're glowing red and they jump up in the air, you have like an anti-air attack that will take them down. You won't get hit, and you'll start breaking their defenses so that you could do larger attacks within it. I honestly feel like there is a ton of strategy in this game, and it's very attractive to me to figure out different combinations when fighting certain bosses or fighting certain enemies to get through them as quickly as possible. Now, yes, some of these enemies are definitely spongy. It takes quite a few hits to take them down, but you're constantly leveling up both your characters that you're playing as, which has a very large roster of characters with familiar faces and new faces in the game, but you're leveling up, of course. You're unlocking new moves by doing side quests, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and you can actually upgrade your weapons by going to an encampment and upgrading these weapons. So the upgrade system is very easy. It's all sort of contingent on how many upgrades of Zonite you have, because yes, lots of Zonai stuff in this game. Zonai technology is used within it, which I think is pretty cool. But you basically amass, while you're playing the game, different resources and different Zonite stuff. With that, you also get rupees, because you gotta have rupees, right? Like, it's the currency. And by taking these Zonites and putting them towards a weapon along with some currency, you can then upgrade the weapon. It gives you additional weapon slots. It gives you additional attacks as well. So it's worth checking out, what sort of weapon upgrades you want to do and for what characters. Because like I said, you're going to end up with a bunch of different characters, and you might like playing as some of them more than you like playing as others of them. You could switch on the fly when you're playing the game by pressing up or down on the little D-pad that will allow you to switch to a different character. Now, characters also have their own unique moves. They also have their own unique power-ups as well, and so they have different gauges that are going on than other enemies. You also have sync attacks, where you can team up with a close-by friend in the battle and then do like these huge, super powerful attacks that have you doing different things depending on which two characters you are utilizing. I really like these attacks. I think they're very interesting. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it by doing different character combinations in order to, maximize your attacks and maximize your damage that you're doing. There's cool stuff with like constructs and Zonai stuff that you see going on here on the screen against this Hinox. Like, just very enjoyable, fluid gameplay. You can dodge. You can then do like parry attacks if you do like a perfectly timed dodge. You also can block attacks. And then you have stuff like this. I kind of went back and forth on whether or not to show this, but there are actually some Legend of Zelda style like things that happened, or I should say Star Fox things that happen within a Legend of Zelda game, which is very interesting because, of course, this being based on Tears of the Kingdom, you have 3 different layers of world to kind of deal with. You have the upper layer, the sky, you have the ground layer, and then, of course, you have the depth layer. So having these different layers and having them kind of play differently with different styles of enemies, and then having these little deviations, like this was actually super fun to me. And as I was playing it, I was like, man, we really need a Star Fox game. Like, putting Star Fox in Bayonetta 2, putting Star Fox into, or Star Fox-like things into Age of Imprisonment is kind of interesting. But, give me that full-on game. But I definitely like all of the different gameplay styles. Some of the characters do feel very similar, which can be a bit of a turnoff for some people. But for me, I've been really enjoying the game. And then, of course, you have the performance. You've seen the visuals, you've seen the frame rate. I captured this at 60 frames per second, and the game runs at 60 frames per second. Even when things get super crazy, everything runs the way it should. You are constantly doing different things when it comes to the graphics and, different areas and different practical effects going on. Destruction is a little bit limited, I will say. I would have liked to have been able to destroy more things. You can do like trees and stuff like that, but I don't know. I would have liked to have taken out some set pieces here and there, maybe. I don't know. I thought that would have been kind of neat. But overall, like, this is a really enjoyable game. You know, you're constantly upgrading your characters. You're constantly getting new things. You're doing new story missions. There are side missions where you can level up. There are also other missions on the map where it's just like having a certain amount of resources. You give it to the people of Hyrule, and then you unlock more upgrades for your characters so that you can have different attacks and stuff like that. Now, with all of that being said, this is a game that I am loving. All right, this is one of my favorite games of the year, probably. Like, I've been thoroughly enjoying this game, absolutely binging it when it comes to, you know, playing it, but I can understand why people don't like it. Because if you're not a fan of The Legend of Zelda, and especially if you're not a fan of the Warriors gameplay, this is going to do nothing to change your mind on it. Literally nothing. Through and through, this is a Warriors experience. This is a Warriors experience with a Zelda story and a Zelda skin and Zelda enemies and Zelda characters. Now, I think that's cool. I think that's enjoyable. And when the performance matches the gameplay and the speed of the gameplay, it makes for a super fun experience that I think is one of the better ones thus far on the Nintendo Switch 2. However, if you don't care about Tears of the Kingdom and you're kind of tired of that area of Zelda and you don't like Warriors gameplay, it's probably not going to be a game for you. And, you know, that's fine. Not every game is for everyone. But for me, Age of Imprisonment, dude, this game is fire. Like, I am thoroughly enjoying. I'm thoroughly enjoying the story. I'm thoroughly enjoying the gameplay. I'm thoroughly enjoying the performance. Looks good and plays good in handheld mode as well. Top-notch stuff. If you're a fan of this style of game, I think it's awesome. It's not a button masher. There's so much strategy that goes into things. When to switch to different enemies, when to dodge, when to parry, when to do this, that, or the other. It's just like, come on, dude. There's a lot going on here. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think of Age of Imprisonment? Does this seem like a game you would be interested in? If so, let me know why. If not, I completely understand. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.